For over 2,000 years, yogis in India practiced a system of movements that required no equipment, no gym membership, and no external weights, just their body and the ground. Historical records document practitioners maintaining full mobility into their 80s, 90s, and beyond. B.K.S. Iyengar practiced yoga daily until his death at 95 with complete range of motion. Krishnamacharya taught yoga until age 100. Indra Devi was still demonstrating full yoga postures at 98. These weren't genetic outliers. They were practitioners who maintained specific movement patterns their entire lives. In 1939, a Western author named Peter Kelder repackaged 5 of these yoga movements and marketed them as Tibetan secrets. He added mystical explanations about chakras and energy vortexes, but the movements themselves are legitimate yoga asanas that have been practiced in ashrams for centuries. Modern research now explains exactly why these 5 movements work. They target the 3 systems that determine how your body ages: vestibular function, spinal mobility, and posterior chain strength. Ancient yogis didn't have MRI machines or biomechanics labs, but they figured out through centuries of practice what science is only now confirming. Here are the 5 movements and what they actually do to your body. No equipment required, just you and the floor, the same way yogis practiced it. The first movement is controlled rotation in place. In yoga traditions, this is a standing pranayama preparation. Stand with feet shoulder width apart. Extend your arms straight out to your sides at shoulder height. Keep your head level, eyes focused on a fixed point. Rotate clockwise in slow, deliberate circles. Yogis didn't have the term vestibular system, but they understood that balance training prevented falls and maintained independence in old age. Your vestibular system is the balance mechanism in your inner ear. After age 40, it declines about 40% per decade if you don't challenge it. That's why older adults fall on uneven ground or in dim lighting. It's not weakness. Your brain stops processing balance signals efficiently. Controlled rotation forces your vestibular system to recalibrate under stress. A 2018 study in the Journal of Vestibular Research found that rotational exercises improved balance scores in adults over 50 by 32% over 12 weeks. Other studies show vestibular training prevents falls better than any other single intervention. Ancient yogis discovered this through practice. Modern science explains the mechanism. Here's the progression. Start with 3 rotations. Stop and stand still until any dizziness passes completely. This recovery period is crucial. Your brain is processing the movement and building stronger balance pathways. Add 2 rotations per week until you reach 21. The number 21 appears in traditional practice, though anywhere from 15 to 25 repetitions works. The key is gradual progression. If you feel dizzy or nauseous, you're going too fast. For safety, keep one hand near a wall when you start. If you have inner ear problems or blood pressure issues, start with just 1 rotation and progress slower. The benefit goes beyond balance. You're training your brain to process sensory information faster. Your reflexes improve. Traditional yogis understood this kept them stable and capable well into old age, regardless of the terrain they walked on. The second movement comes from classical Hatha Yoga. Lie flat on your back with arms at your sides. Keep your legs completely straight and raise them until they're perpendicular to the floor. At the same time, lift your head and bring your chin toward your chest. Lower your legs back down in a controlled motion, but stop about 6 inches off the floor. Don't let them touch the ground. Then raise them back up. Inhale as you lower. Exhale as you raise. Yogis didn't sit in chairs for 8 hours a day, but they understood that hip flexor strength and core stability were essential for maintaining mobility. In traditional practice, this movement was called a preparatory asana. It engaged the entire anterior chain before more complex postures. Modern desk workers have adaptively shortened hip flexors from sitting all day. When hip flexors stay in a shortened position for years, they lose length and strength simultaneously. Shortened hip flexors pull your pelvis into anterior tilt, which compresses your lumbar spine. That's the mechanical cause of most chronic low back pain, not a weak core, a tight, weak anterior chain pulling your skeleton out of alignment. This movement addresses both problems without any equipment. The eccentric lowering phase lengthens the hip flexors under load. The concentric raising phase strengthens them through full range of motion. Your entire core stabilizes the movement. A 2020 study in the Journal of Orthopedic Research found that hip flexor length and strength were better predictors of functional mobility in older adults than age or body weight. Yogis maintained these qualities through body weight movements. No leg press machines, no cable attachments, just controlled movement against gravity. Start with 3 repetitions. Build to 21 over several weeks. If you can't keep your legs straight, bend your knees slightly. If you have lower back issues, place your hands under your lower back for support. The third movement is a modified version of Ustrasana, a fundamental yoga back bend. Kneel on the floor with your shins flat and knees about hip width apart. Place your hands on your lower back with fingers pointing down. Slowly arch backward, opening your chest and looking up toward the ceiling. Keep your hips pressed forward so the arch comes from your thoracic spine, your upper back, not your lumbar spine. Hold this position for a few seconds while breathing deeply, then slowly return to the starting position. In yoga philosophy, back bends are called heart openers. The physical reality is they reverse the postural damage that modern life creates. Yogis didn't spend hours hunched over desks, but they understood that opening the chest and strengthening the upper back maintained functional posture for daily activities. Forward head posture and rounded shoulders create predictable problems. Shortened pectoral muscles, weak upper back muscles, compressed thoracic outlet, restricted breathing capacity. That's why people who sit all day have shoulder pain, neck tension, and feel like they can't take a deep breath. Ustrasana reverses this pattern without any equipment. The backward arch opens tight anterior structures while engaging weak posterior muscles. The combination of stretch and strengthening resets the balance that sitting destroys. A 2019 study in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science found that thoracic extension exercises reduced neck and shoulder pain in office workers by 58% over 8 weeks. Yogis maintain this mobility through daily practice of postures like Ustrasana. Start with 3 repetitions, holding each for a few seconds. Build to 21. Deep breathing helps your nervous system relax into the position and increases the benefit. This is why yogis always emphasized breath control with movement. For modifications, if you have knee problems, place a folded towel under your knees. If you have shoulder issues, keep your hands higher on your back and reduce range of motion. You don't need to arch as far as possible. Controlled movement through comfortable range is what matters. The fourth movement is Purvottanasana, the upward plank or reverse table pose. Sit on the floor with your legs straight out in front of you. Place your hands flat on the ground behind you, fingers pointing toward your feet. Your arms should be straight, supporting your upper body weight. Press through your hands and heels to lift your hips up until your body forms a straight line from knees to shoulders. Your head should be in a neutral position, not dropped back or tucked forward. Hold this position for a few seconds, then slowly lower back down with control. In yoga tradition, this is a counter pose to forward bends. It activates the entire posterior chain. Yogis understood that balanced practice required both flexion and extension, both anterior and posterior strengthening. They didn't have gym equipment, but they developed movements that built functional strength through body weight resistance. The modern problem, weak glutes and shoulders create compensation patterns that lead to injury. When your posterior chain shuts off from years of sitting, your body uses the wrong muscles for basic movements. Your lower back compensates for weak glutes. Your upper traps compensate for weak shoulder stabilizers. Purvottanasana activates exactly what sitting turns off: glutes, hamstrings, and shoulder blade stabilizers, your rhomboids, lower traps, and rotator cuff. The isometric hold at the top builds strength. The controlled lowering builds eccentric strength, crucial for injury prevention. A 2017 study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that posterior chain strength was the strongest predictor of functional independence in adults over 60. Stronger than cardiovascular fitness, stronger than flexibility. Your posterior chain determines whether you can get up from a chair or climb stairs in your 70s and 80s. Yogis maintain this strength without deadlifts, rows, or cable machines, just bodyweight movement against gravity. Start with 3 repetitions. Work up to 21 over several weeks. If you can't lift your hips all the way up initially, lift as high as you can while maintaining form. For modifications, if you have wrist problems, do this on your fists instead of flat palms, or use yoga blocks to reduce wrist extension. The 5th movement flows between 2 fundamental yoga postures: Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, and Bhujangasana, cobra pose. This creates dynamic spinal mobility through controlled transitions. Start in downward facing dog, hands and feet on the ground, hips up in the air, body forming an inverted V shape. From this position, shift your weight forward and lower your hips while keeping your hands planted. Move into an upward facing dog or cobra position where your hips are low, your chest is open, and you're looking slightly upward. Then reverse the movement. Push back through your hands and lift your hips back up into downward dog. This flowing movement takes your spine through flexion and extension while building strength throughout your entire body. The key is smooth transitions and controlled breathing, the foundation of all yoga practice. Exhale as you move forward into upward dog. Inhale as you push back into downward dog. The breathing coordinates with movement to maximize the benefit. In traditional yoga, this type of flowing movement is called vinyasa, linking breath with motion. Yogis understood that spinal mobility was essential for healthy aging. A stiff spine doesn't just mean you can't bend over, it means your entire movement system becomes rigid and inefficient. Limited spinal mobility creates compensation patterns in your hips, shoulders, and knees. Those compensations lead to pain and injury. This flowing sequence maintains spinal mobility through both flexion and extension. No equipment, no machines, just controlled movement through your spine's natural ranges. A 2016 study in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity found that spinal mobility exercises improved functional movement scores by 41% in adults over 55 and reduced chronic back pain by 52%. Yogis maintained this through daily practice of movements exactly like this one. Start with 3 repetitions of the full flow. Build to 21 over several weeks. Focus on smooth transitions. Quality of movement matters more than speed. This is a core principle in yoga practice. For modifications, if you have shoulder problems, reduce range of motion in both positions. If you have wrist issues, do this against a wall instead of on the ground. Place your hands on the wall and walk your feet back to create the same movement pattern with less weight on your wrists. Before I show you how to program these into a daily routine, if you want more content that examines ancient training methods with honest research backing, please consider subscribing to my channel. I break down what historical systems actually taught and why they work. No mysticism, no exaggerated claims, just evidence-based content on how Greeks, Romans, Vikings, and other historical groups actually trained. New videos every week. Here's how yogis structured these 5 movements into a daily practice. The order matters because each movement prepares your body for the next one. Movement 1, rotation, activates your nervous system without fatiguing you. It's a grounding warm-up. Movements 2 and 3 address the anterior chain and open the body. Movement 4 activates the posterior chain. Movement 5 integrates everything through dynamic spinal flow. This progression follows traditional yoga principles. Ground, warm, open, strengthen, integrate. Week 1. Do 3 repetitions of each movement. Focus on learning the patterns and coordinating your breath with each motion. Don't worry about perfect form yet, just get familiar with how each movement feels. Week 2. Increase to 5 repetitions if the movements feel comfortable. Week 3. Move to 7 repetitions. Continue adding 2 repetitions each week until you reach 21 of each movement. Traditional yoga practice uses 21 repetitions, though any range from 15 to 25 works. The key is consistent daily practice. This is what separates yoga from exercise. It's not something you do when you feel like it, it's a daily maintenance practice. This routine takes about 10 minutes once you know the movements. Yogis typically practiced at sunrise, before the demands of the day began. Your body will start craving these movements because they make you feel significantly better. Here's what to expect. Energy changes happen in days because you're activating circulation. Balance improvements show up in 7 to 10 days as your vestibular system adapts. Hip mobility and postural changes take 3 to 4 weeks. Posterior chain activation and lasting strength changes need 6 to 8 weeks of consistent work. This timeline matches what research shows for motor pattern adaptation and tissue remodeling. Yogis understood through experience what science now confirms. Daily practice creates lasting change. Research on routine practice shows that consistency beats intensity for long-term results. Doing these movements for 10 minutes every morning is more powerful than doing an hour-long workout twice a week. The daily stimulus compounds over time. This is why yoga is practiced daily, not sporadically. For troubleshooting, if you get dizzy during rotation, slow down and do fewer repetitions. If you feel joint discomfort, reduce range of motion and focus on control. If you're short on time, do just 1 round of each movement. Something is always better than nothing. The key is making this practice automatic. Pick a consistent time. Right after you wake up is traditional. Stack it with an existing habit. Within 2 weeks, it becomes part of your morning routine. These 5 movements come from ancient yoga traditions practiced for over 2,000 years. Yogis maintained remarkable mobility into advanced age, some documented into their 90s and beyond, without modern gyms, equipment, or the fitness industry. They used movements that worked with gravity, body weight, and natural ranges of motion. No barbells, no machines, no monthly membership fees. Just fundamental movement patterns that keep your body functioning the way it's designed to. The difference between someone who moves well at 70 and someone who's stiff and in pain isn't access to a gym. It's whether they maintain these basic movement patterns or let them atrophy from disuse. Modern research now explains why these movements work. They target vestibular function, spinal mobility, postural balance, and posterior chain strength, the exact systems that determine functional aging. Ancient yogis discovered this through centuries of practice. You can apply it in 10 minutes every morning. No equipment required, no gym membership, just you and the floor, the same way practitioners have done it for 2,000 years. Start tomorrow morning. Pick one movement and do 3 repetitions. The next day, add the second movement. Build the practice one movement at a time until it becomes automatic. Now here's what's interesting. Ancient yogis maintained mobility into old age using these slow, controlled body weight movements. But Shaolin monks took a completely different approach. They built explosive power and bone density that modern athletes can't replicate. While yogis focused on flexibility and balance, Shaolin monks were breaking bricks with their hands and conditioning their bodies to withstand impact. I broke down the exact Shaolin training methods in my last video, including the movements Western fitness completely ignores. If you want to see how a different ancient system approached longevity and strength, watch this video next.